Hi, Sveta. Nice to
Hi,
see you.
Daniela.
Hi. So we are here to do an alumni portrait test video testimonial. And I have a few questions for you as an alumna from graduate school. First and foremost, maybe you want to briefly introduce yourself. Say a little bit of who you are and what you've studied here with us.
Absolutely. So my name is Sveta Mardar. I'm a senior global external affairs strategist. I specialize in developing and commercializing alumni networks globally. And I graduated from Lund almost 10 years ago now. I did a master's in global studies with a major in media and communication.
Wow, impressive. And 10 years ago, yeah, time really flies, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're having fun,
When you're having
especially.
fun, exactly. Good to add that. So since it was 10 years ago, since you started here, what have you been up to? What have you been doing after graduating from global studies?
Well, the story is like this. Basically, a week after graduation, I moved to London on a sort of one-way ticket and an idea of something I wanted to pursue. I've basically been in London and calling it home ever since. So it's almost 10 years now. I knew I wanted to work in higher education, and to me at that time, it made sense that London is the place to be for that. You have so many world-class universities and various kind of higher education institutions that I knew that's where I wanted to go and that's what I wanted to pursue. So that was kind of my plan. And in the next kind of almost 10 years, I've worked in academia. I've worked also in the private sector, specifically in professional services. In this time, I've had 6 different roles and 4 different employers. So one would say that I've done quite a bit. I've
Yeah,
been busy. I've
yeah,
been busy, kind of professionally developing, growing myself, trying different, not necessarily careers, but different kind of aspects of a career in different sectors. So that's been really interesting. Um, I'd also actually would say that probably my kind of favorite job of all that I've had is probably my second role that I had. So I worked at the London School of Economics for over
mm,
3 years. And there I actually managed international alumni programs for the school. That was really interesting for me because it just was such a great, academic environment, global institution,
mm,
where all of the global kind of debates were happening. So you were always part of that forefront of academia, and a lot of like visitors, a lot of kind of heads of states were at the LSE all the time giving guest lectures, and we were involved in all of that. So that's really good. The way I really, liked my role, what I really liked about my role was that it was all, global, high kind of international content. I got to meet a lot of people. I work with highly, accomplished alumni from all around the world. I got to travel for quite a bit, especially to Asia, which, was very new and very different, unknown completely to me. I'd never been there. So over the time that I worked there, I traveled a lot. And actually, overall, that's the place where I spent kind of the biggest part of my professional career. So it's, I still kind of remember it very fondly because it was that role that gave me all these opportunities. And it was really interesting for me at the time.
mm,
Remember it all very, very fondly. But I did eventually decide to move on. So there's a need for a new challenge. There's a need to try something else and to try to grow my career. And that's when I moved into the private sector. So I spent almost 3 years at EY. I think most people know it as Ernst and Young. So it's a
mm,
global Big Four accounting firm. So I worked there in their marketing and communications department for almost 3 years. I had 2 different roles there. And then most recently, I worked at a global law firm called Clifford Chance, based here in London. And so that's been also really interesting, very interesting kind of role where I developed and led their global alumni program across all of their offices around the world. So that's been really interesting. That's been my journey so far in a very short kind of nutshell,
yeah.
short summary.
Summarizing 10 years is not easy, I
It
wouldn't
is
say.
not easy. It is absolutely not easy, but it's definitely been very interesting, very dynamic, with a lot of change. I think one thing that can definitely guarantee that it's happened is that I've been looking for new challenges, for new opportunities, and it's been great for that.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. It sounds very insightful and inspiring, I would say, at the same time, like hearing all the different tasks and everything you've embarked on during this 10-year period. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking here, you worked with alumni relations in the past, so you're well acquainted also, as you mentioned, you worked in higher education institutions. I'm wondering a bit more regarding your studies time here at Lund University. Can you share a little bit of what you enjoyed the most about studying your master's here in global studies and also at graduate school, and then maybe generally at the university as a whole? But if there's anything specific about the program or graduate school as such that you want to share.
Absolutely, and I think over the course of this interview, you'll hear there's a thread. I think the most important factor for me has definitely been, well, one, I did a master's in global studies, so as you would expect, what was really important for me and what was interesting for me was that global aspect and global dimension. So that was the most important for me, that in the academic environment and in the classroom, that we were an international classroom, that the program had this global dimension, and we looked through global perspectives at all the topics that we were studying. That was the most important for me, the fact that, you know, my classmates were from around the world, you know, a mix from different parts of the world, different countries, different experiences, actually very different academic backgrounds as well. So that was really interesting. So that diverse nature, you know, of the student population, I think is a really big plus, a really big advantage. And it's a bit of a microcosm, as I refer to it. It really gives you an opportunity, you know, to learn both in the classroom and outside of it from your faculty, your professors, and your classmates who are, you know, there with different life experience, different professional experiences. I think that was kind of the highlight for me, and the most important aspect wasn't just that I wanted to study a global program, but that it offered that program within this very diverse, very international setting. So I think that's definitely that's my highlight and the kind of most important factor.
Yeah, yeah. And I can also say for prospective students listening to this, or also for current students listening to this, I'm sure that you will recognize what Sveta is saying, that even today, 10 years later, maybe more so. I don't know how it looked like 10 years ago, but it's a very international environment and you study with students from all over the world. So definitely something that I can recommend. So if we're looking at prospective students who might also be watching this recording, now it was, well, over 10 years ago since you chose global studies with us here at graduate school. If you were choosing a master's program today, with all the knowledge you have since studying, what advice would you have liked to receive when you were applying or looking or thinking, what masters do I choose?
Yeah, it's so interesting to think back and just try to imagine. I think if I really roll back the time, it was 2009 when I started, you know, just as I was graduating from my bachelor's, when I started to look at what I would like to do next and what program and what country and, you know, what university, all of those. And then kind of settling on a few programs. They were all global studies, by the way, global studies, international relations for me,
Yeah.
because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go into that area. But beyond that, you know, beyond doing a bit of research and reading the prospectus of a program, I don't think there was much available then, but there was also not much, at least for me, no one to really ask or get an insight from. So what I would say that what would have helped me is to be a bit at the time, and I think it would help anyone now, though there's a lot more resources. You know, these days we have things like this, alumni testimonials. We can go and see someone's career. We can, you know, see stories. We have more information, and I think the university as well provides a lot more of those and a lot more interaction between, you know, students and alumni, prospective students. What would have helped me is to be more informed, and I think to have a more realistic expectation of, you know, what the labor market would be for not just for that field, but just as a recent graduate. You know, why would I think that finishing a master's in, you know, global studies would give me great chances of landing a job at the UN or a big international organization. I mean, that's fantasy, right?
Yes.
So that is fantasy. And that's not to say I have classmates who have, ended up getting roles in those fields.
Hmm.
But it was not straightforward. It was not quick, and they were kind of, they decided that path and they followed. I, in the meantime, kind of evolved my thinking and completely changed fields, and I'm very happy with it. But I
Yeah.
think having a better understanding, more insights, just more realistic expectations, and that could come from the university itself. That could also come from having access to career guidance, right? And career advice in a professional way, where you have more understanding of the labor market in your desired country or field, but you also understand the process, so you know more how to prepare yourself. So
Yeah.
yes, you'll pass your exams and you get all the grades that you want and you'll be admitted, and then you come in and you want to do well and do your courses and kind of either be very stressed about graduation and what you will do,
Yeah.
or already start looking for jobs and stressing yourself too much before without enjoying the course itself. So that's a tough balance. But I think specifically for us, the reason it would have been good to have more guidance is because we're social sciences graduates, and unlike someone who graduates from law or medicine or engineering, our career paths are not clear, are not straightforward, and are not necessarily have been done before. It's both. It's not necessarily a disadvantage, but it's definitely can be very daunting.
Mm.
Graduate from an interdisciplinary program where you've done so much different studying and you have a lot of ideas and perspectives. But that does not make it any easier for you to find a role and to kind of argue for yourself, in a job application or an interview where you're many of the thousands. I've received rejections by the thousands, right? When you're applying. So having some a stronger support specifically for those fields that are not straightforward, I think is really important. It would have benefited me, whether I was looking for it at the university or elsewhere. But
Yeah.
also, I would say, just to kind of summarize, regardless of what program you're looking for, I think you want to have a plan of how you want to spend your time, how you want to split your time in, whether it's a year program or a 2-year program. So how much time you're gonna spend on your formal studies, getting hands-on work experience, your social kind of life. All of those are important. So I think having that clear before you start is really important. It'll help you throughout the program. It give you
Yes.
some structure as well. How do you prioritize what you asked earlier? Where this is important for me. Or you know what? I actually have 10 years experience. I'm quite relaxed. I'm here for the academic kind of discussion and debate, and my job does not depend on what grade I get in this course. That is also possible. So I want to enjoy my social time, my other activities outside the classroom. I think it's important to know that,
Mhm.
and understand that your master's program is bigger than just the academic course. It's a package, right?
Right.
the university, it's the other students, it's the whole social life and all other opportunities there are around you. So have that in mind, and then just build your program and the experience that you want to have based on that. I think a plan is really good, but as I said, you can always change it and adjust it.
Exactly. It's flexible. Thank you very much for that answer. It was so thorough and detailed. I'm not sure where to begin. And that leads me to thinking a little bit more about lifelong learning, which is something that at least Lund University have started looking into more during these past years. That is to say, maybe students that are a bit older than what you could, traditional students, if you want to put it like that, who come back to university to study, or yeah, exactly, to change careers or whatnot. So lifelong learning is a hot topic here in Lund. I don't know if it's the same in London or in the rest of the world. Do you have any advice to students who are looking into embarking on a journey of lifelong learning?
That's a really interesting question, Daniela. So I actually, this reminded me, you saying that this hot topic in Lund. I remember when I was still at LSE, there was a big town hall I think we did with the director of the school and faculty, and this came up, and also in the context of how what's the population of the university going to look like in 10, 20 years time, when we know that people need to study throughout their lives and careers, and many people will change, not just
Mhm.
jobs like we do, millennials,
Yeah.
many times, but careers a
Mhm.
few times. And how is the university preparing? It's a strategy kind of thinking. How is the
Mhm.
university preparing and thinking long term to serve not just its current students and traditional students, but people down the line who will need that. And
Mhm.
it might be that you will have so many alumni come back to the university 10, 20 years from now.
Mhm.
And that for me was such an intriguing discussion at the time. It was so interesting. It's very not just academic, but business thinking and
Mhm.
kind of strategy, and what's the future of the university going to be like, what the student population will be like. So it's really interesting that it's very hot topic still at Lund, because this was quite a while ago for me when I was at LSE.
Mhm.
I think, and it's not just my experience, just seeing everyone around, lifelong learning is not really an option. So that is a necessity.
Mhm.
Whether you are in an academic, pure academic sort of career, or you are in a professional and working in private sector, public sector, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
you have to embrace a mindset of curiosity and constant learning and growth. It's really not an option. You have to
Yeah.
do it if you want to succeed, if you want to grow, if you want to progress, or even if you want to change from one place to another.
Mhm.
So sometimes that might be, and in a way, I can give my own example. I never stopped learning. When I was graduating from Lund and doing my dissertation, on the side of that, I was taking, at the time, they were still very new, I was taking MOOCs, massive open online
Yeah.
courses on Coursera. I know Lund now has, right, but at the time, and it was related to the job I wanted to have, and it was just so interesting. Imagine I'm writing a dissertation, I am applying for jobs, and I also had time to sit and take this course on my own time, right? Because I knew, and I did take, other courses throughout for a few years until I got really busy with work. But I would say that, that lifelong learning sometimes will mean, that you take a course, you read books that are in your professional field, or you get specialist journals, or you listen to podcasts that are on very specific topics, and there's so much of that content. It's all free as
Mhm.
well. And yeah, there's essentially there's no stopping to it. I think that's why we call this lifelong learning, because it will stay with us throughout. We know the world is changing, it's constantly evolving. We don't really want to stay behind. Doesn't mean we adopt every kind of fade
Yes.
path that comes through, but we to really enjoy it and to really stay part of the developments, we have to do that. So it's always, I'm listening to a podcast, I'll have a book,
Mhm.
always look at what else is there and who I
Yeah.
can learn from. So that's really important.
Oh, that's an excellent answer. Thank you very much, Sveta. That was all the questions I had for you here and now. Thank you for participating in this alumni video testimonial. I hope the
My pleasure. My pleasure, Camila.
viewers liked it as well. I hope so too. Maybe we'll have you back one day or so. Who knows?
Look, I'm always open, always happy to come back. It's really enjoyable. It's really fun. I learn a bit about the school and what's happening, what's the latest, what else,
Right.
what else is how the university is changing, and so it's really good to know. And it's really interesting to come back, to give back, to share a little bit, hopefully to reassure some of the current students or
Yes.
recent graduates and other fellow alumni that you got this, and there is definitely a way to get to where you're going. And it's great to have a resource like this, the alumni office, the career services the university has. I think really use them, look for them, try to
Right.
and reach out as well. We're here, we're part of a big network, or all
Yes.
over the world, we're a big global network. And if there's someone that needs help or support or advice, that's what we're here for. And I'm very happy to come back and support, because I know maybe I didn't have as much insights or as
Mhm.
much access. So that's great. Thank you for the invitation, and happy to be back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you very much.